We're back to where we stopped yesterday. So today majorly we will be talking about outputting variable. In terms of outputting variable, the outputting variable uses what we call print, like this. So it uses something that looks like this, so which is print. So anytime you want to output your variable, so you use this print. For example, if we say that Lydia uh, comes late to class. Now, for you just to output it, you just need to do print Lydia, like this. Now, in this case, you see here that what you are referring for it to print is this Lydia. So whatever that you declare here as variable is what you are going to print. So that's why you have Lydia, she comes to class late. So that's why you have this. So anytime you want to output variable, you don't need to say print like the way we put it here. You now say like this. You don't have to say print Lydia like this. So the moment you put this thing here into this, you are not referring to the variable, but you are referring to Lydia here. So because here you are now putting them in here, it becomes a string. So but in this case, make sure that what you're outputting is this. So this is not it. If you want to output a variable, for you to output a variable, you uses the print to print. So in the print function, you can also print multiple variable. How do you print multiple variable in print function? So you still do the same thing. For example, I'm going to say that x is equals to Lydia. So I'm going to put it in variable like this, and then y, for example, Lydia comes become another one, and then for example z is that she comes late. Now in this particular part, so if you want to output a variable, so you can just output a variable this way. So what it means is that you are going to bring in them together, so it become Lydia comes late. Now in this case here, so you see that you get it in this way pattern as well. So for the fact that you put the comma here and the print is coming in this pattern, you can still print it in this pattern as it is. So print x comma y comma z, and it will still give you the same thing as if you say print x comma y comma z, like this. So once you run this and then you print like this, so you're going to have the same thing. So this first one give you this, the second one gives you this. So in terms of printing them like that, so this is the way you can actually output a variable. That is printing a function or having the output of multiple variables separated with comma. So this is a way you can output. So you can either go like this or go like this. Any of them can give you the output of the variable that you have actually declared. So you can also use a plus operator in aspect of printing multiple variable. Like what I mean is that in here you can say print, you say x plus y plus z. So this is another way you can print it. So you add up this, it becomes Lydia comes late. Now but in this case, you see that you have an issue here, which is having all of them coming together. So you will now notice that in this way you are going to have all of them together if you say Lydia plus y plus z. So in that way you are going to have the result and all of them is going to come together. So the number, as in the character, is an operator, is a mathematical operator which is plus sign that add all of them together. So if you want to add them together like this, so you have this kind of output which you are having. So but in that case it brings them into this pattern. So if you have something like this, for example, and you run this particular this thing again, what are you going to have? You see that this brings you comma here. So in that way, you need to have a comma here. And if you have a comma here, if you run this again, the first one, you also need to have a comma here. So what I'm saying is that in this case of having this type of thing here, so having this kind of this thing is not possible. So having a way to separate them in such a way that you're not going to have it merged up like this. So in this case, you have this plus this comma this. So you trying to work on something that is not going to bring them together is not really working here. So the only way you can get them here is if you want to merge them together like the way I am doing. So you ought to have it just as like the way I put it up like this. So you can say here, instead of you having a comma here, you now put it up like this, such that both of them is going to merge, but it's going to have Lydia complete in this particular pattern and not giving you a space between them. So this is a way you can bring this together. But if it is not a strings, because it's a mathematical this thing, that's why it brings it together. But if it is not a string, if it is an integer, for example, you say that y is equals to 34, and then x is equal to 34 and y is equals to 87. So the moment you say print x and y, you are going to have the output of them because it is now a mathematical function here. Now look at integer, and this is strings. So what if you combine integer and float? So you are going to have the output as float, as you can see here. So because it's a mathematical function, so whatever you put here, if you say minus here, that automatically gives you minus. Then if you say division here, that automatically gives you division. And then if you say do multiplication here, that's automatically give you multiplication uh, output. So what it means is that this, as you can see here, if it is a strings, you get it in this particular pattern as you see here. But if it is an integer or float, you get it in this particular function as you see here. So if you are trying to print a function, but remember, like I've told us early yesterday, that you cannot combine two things. For example, when you say that x is equals to, let's say 45, and you say y is equals to, and you say y is equals to Lydia. So you cannot bring x, coming here to say print x plus y. Now this is not going to be possible for a reason, because the two of them are not the same type of data. It is strings, and then this one is strings and this one is integer. So you cannot, this is type error. So we're going to treat error, but this is type error. You cannot bring in integer and strings together. But we are going to show you how, I'm going to show you how we are going to bring them together using a format as we proceed. So we are going to do that. But for in this particular pattern, you can show you how we can combine those things together. So if you want to work on this, this is not possible. But the way you can actually print these things to work, for example, you see this is giving us an error because it is not working. Now the way you can actually get it done is, if they are of different thing, then you can use comma to separate them. So just like when we were here, and you see that we use comma to bring this one, and when you plus, it comes together. So when you bring comma like this, if you want to talk about numbers and you want to talk about numbers, and that is integer, float and string, so you can bring them together by using comma. So once you say the same thing here, let me put z and then put a number that goes in like this, and then if I come up here and say this comma z, so and then I run this, then this is the only way I can bring in integer. But in the other way of using plus sign, recare is not possible. So except when we go to format, then I will show us how you can get that done. So generally, this is a way you can output a variable, and that will work perfectly. Yeah, so this is a way you can output a variable. So another thing we need to talk about is aspect of variable which have to do with global or local variable. Global or local variable. So in that part, how does it work? So global variable. Now the global variable a global variable is actually a variable that is created outside a function. It is known as a global variable. Now, what is a function? A function is a block of code that run anytime you call it. So, global variable itself is actually a variable that is created outside a function. So, in that case, let's say that I say x is equals to Lydia, and then this is x, and then I want to bring in my function. Then you see now that I'm going to say my function, and I say that print she is x. Now my function, this is now a function because anytime I call function, whatever that is inside here is going to come out. So what it means is that this is a block of code, which is function, is a block of code that anytime I call it, it is going to answer. Like if you call it, it will work on. So now how do you call it? Now we are not going to use print again, but we're going to be using calling the block of code. What is the block of code we are calling? We are calling the function. And once we call my function, which is what we define here, the output under this block of code will run. So what it means is that if I define another function, like if I define another function that I'm going to call Fareda, for example, here, I have another function that defined as Fareda. Now, if I define Fareda here as a function, then it means that if I call Fareda here and I say she also comes late, let me say she also comes late with x. Now what it means is that if I run this code, I have two blocks of code. Now if I run this code, because this is a block of code, anytime I call it is going to answer me, or is going to run. You see now that when I say my function, what happens here is that it is only Lydia that come. So if I want to call Fareda, I need to also call Fareda as a function before Fareda will run. Now I need to call Fareda now, and you can see that she also comes with Lydia. Now who is the x? Lydia here as is now the x. So I've created a variable outside that function. So anytime I call it, it is going to answer me. Now if you look at this code now, it's now a block of code. There is no reason Fareda will never run until I call Fareda here. And then if I don't want Lydia to come, so let me change this thing to Lydia, this function here, and I'm going to call it Lydia. Now in this particular part, it means that anytime this code is going to run, if I run this code now, it's just going to say okay, it's okay, there is no problem with the code. But if I want to output whatever that is in here, it is only going to come the moment I say Fareda and Lydia. That's when two of this code is going to work. And if I don't want Farida to work, and I'm going to comment Farida, and you see that what is going to call only is Lydia. So now what is this? This is a variable that is declared outside the function. Now I am using function, so I can declare different function here, and it can only execute once I call them. So I can put different things. For example, I can define different variable for each of you, and then I will only, if I want to access one person, I can call that one person. And then how do I call the person? By calling the function I defined here. So like I said, function is a block of code that runs anytime you call it. How do you call it? You call it using that particular um, function. So if you create a variable of the same name inside that function, you can call it a local variable and you can use it inside the function. So the global variable with the same name will remain as it was. So it will only remain with its value. So what it means is that I can declare x twice, but it will not run until I call it. Like what I mean is that, you see I've said x. Remember what I said? Let me change it to late. People that are coming late. Let's know we're discussing people that are coming late. And then I go in here and put late. Then I still come inside here and change it to late. Now what happens if I call late inside any of them? So what I mean is that I have actually said that this is late. Now, and you know that automatically if I write late here, what happens here is that it is going to override this other one here. But because it is now a local variable, it is inside this one, making it a local variable. Now, ideally, it's supposed to override this late here, supposed to override here, but this is a global variable and this is a local variable. So what happens is that this one will not be overwritten because it is under this function here. So what happens is, yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
I want you to clarify on that term of override because I have been seeing it many times in the codes, and I ask myself, what is this mean? Because I see it more in the codes.
Okay. Yeah. So let me explain it down here before I proceed. What I mean is that if I type ame is equals to 5, and then I go down here and repeat the same ame is equal to 10. So what means is that if I print ame, that automatically become 10, not 5 again. Why? Because a Python is an interpreter. It goes line by line. The first thing it understand that I have said that this is ame is 5. It understand that and keep it. But as it is going down, it will see another ame as 10. So automatically it says, so that means for the fact that all of them have the same variable, the same thing that I'm trying to declare. So that means this one here should supersede this one. I don't know you get what I'm trying to say. It is now supersede for the fact that I have declared the same thing and it is the same name. Automatically, it tends to clean off the other one and replace it with this particular one. Let me give you an example. Assuming I am marking your paper, you see, if you have a score of 100, no, let's say if you have a score of 50, and I have uploaded your result to a portal and I put there 50. Then you now meet me and talk with me automatically that there is this type of thing and this is that. So, oh, that is my mistake. You did not score 50, you score 80. And I now re-upload your result again by putting 80. What happens? It automatically replaces the 50 because it is the same name, you being the same range number, and automatically that result will be replaced from 50 to 100, from 50 to the 80 that I just put now. So automatically, because it is the same username, the same range number, that particular will be replaced with the other one. So that's exactly what is happening. So the moment you say May is 5, this is your first score that I've given you, and then you come to me and say, this is this thing, I speak English, and I say, oh, sorry, this is what happened. Okay, let it be 80. So automatically, what will be showing on your portal will become 80, not anymore 50. Did you get that? Did you get what I explained?
Yes, of course, I get it.
Okay, yeah, so that's what happened. But what happens here in this particular one is when you are talking about global and local variable. So now I have declared late. Now this ideally, this particular one is supposed to be this. This particular one supposed to be this. But because this one is a global variable, it is not going to replace this one under this function. So that means I can still say the same thing so far it is on global and local variable. Now this is a global variable. Now this one here is now a local variable. Now what makes it a local variable? What makes it a local variable is that this particular array here can never work for Farida. It only works when it have to do with Lydia. So what it means is that even inside here, I can still declare another variable, the same late here, and I can call this one Bala. Now, in this aspect, it only function under Farida as a local variable. So this one you're seeing here is a local variable for Farida. But globally, the whole late is based on Lydia. So in that way, what happens is that if I call, look at what is going to happen. If I call this variable Farida, what is going to happen? It is going to be, sorry, Balaka name is not found. Oh, hold on a bit.
You have to put like a parenthesis, oh no, quotations on Balaka.
Yeah. That's true. Thank you. Yeah. So you now see that. Look at what is happening here now. I called here. You see automatically that when I called X, because it is a local variable, I only call Lydia. Let's start with the first one. So I'm going to start with Lydia. You will see that Lydia now, she is a May. And if you look here, you see that what is calling is this local one. She is a May. Now, if I check Farida now, what is going to bring Farida is going to focus on. She also comes with Balak. So if I run the same, and you will see now she also comes with Balak. It is not touching this because I am calling it outside the function. Now, the only way we can work on the function, now this is where indentation comes in. If I say now print here, and I say that print she is late, let's go with this. And let's say print she is late. She comes, let's just say she comes late like that. She comes late. So we are going to say she comes late with this one. We are declaring late, right? We are working as we are calling the function late. Sorry. So let's say we are trying to put she comes late here. And we are running this now. So you see now that if you look here, let me put space in between them. If you look here, you see now that Lydia is here. You can see here. Now, you see Lydia is here, and you now find out that we are saying print she comes late here. You see now that I am now working on this. This is a global variable. Because of this indentation now, what happens is that you are having Lydia coming here. Now, I want to ask a question. Who can tell me the reason why? You see, I put Farida here. What comes first is also comes with Balak. Then the next one is Lydia, and it arrange it in order. It calls Lydia. Why is it that print she comes late, she comes plus late, which is Lydia, comes first in the printing here. Who can tell me why? Do anybody have an idea why? Why is it that it is arranging it in this order? Why is it that she comes late comes first in this part, but when I call this one rearrange itself? Do anybody have any idea? Can you try?
I mean, it's because Lydia, it is an global variable, and that's the local variable.
You say leader is what?
Global variable, and that's the local variables.
Okay, yes. Yeah, and then secondly, what happens here is that the first, if you look at this line, you see this is the first line here. Now, this one you're seeing here is under, that is, it is a kind of function. So what Python does is that first it read this line. So it went and read first, second. So if I take this here, cut this print here, and put it under here, and run the same thing here. So what happens? You will see that she comes here. So it is in the arrangement which you can see here. So it read this one first before coming to this particular one. So you see this comes here. So what I'm saying is that the same value, like I said here, that it will override this. But if you are using local and global variable, that particular thing will be actually be overriding like the way you see it here. So this is going to leave it here because this is in local variable and this is in global variable stage. So this is all about having a global variable and then having a local variable. So this is how you can declare that. But also, you can also, if you don't want to work on it by declaring it like this, at the same time, you can declare a variable that is in local as a global. When you have a local variable here, you see this one, you have it as a local variable. Then if you want to declare this late as a global variable, so what you need to do is, let me explain what I'm trying to say here a bit. Maybe you will understand what I'm saying. I'm going just to add this code and I'm going to make a modification on it. Let's say that I put up here, I'm going to delete this, and you see now that I have Lydia, which I have actually declared. Now, what if I want to put a variable inside it? So let me just comment all this one here, and then I've commented this, and I want to declare one of the variable there. So what I need to do is that inside the local here, inside the local variable here, I'm going to declare here as global is late inside here. So you see now that this one, because I've said global late, automatically this one becomes part of the global variable. So I've declared this particular one as global. So in this late inside here becomes a global variable. In such a way, if I run this code, now what happens here? You see now that she is a May. Farida is the first one here, which is she is a May. Now, if you look at this, she is Lydia. Now, you see this. Now, let us go to the global printing. You see now that she becomes Lydia. Because I have declared this one, I have said global late, automatically, this particular late inside here it is serving as a global variable. Let me put something different so that you understand what I'm saying. Now, if you look here, you see that in this line where I call Lydia, I have she is or was Lydia. Now, this is she is or was Lydia. And then if you look at this one, you say she comes Lydia, which is she comes Lydia. Now, what it means is that I am trying to make one particular local variable to serve as global and at the same time serve as local variable. So this is a way to make it here. Now, if you look at these two code here, you see a difference between them. Here, I declared it late as global variable. But inside here, I am making this one serve as global and local variable. So in that way, she is late here is automatically serving as for both global and local variable. And that is why I have global here, late, and you see here that I said when I say print she comes here, which is here, so that's automatically pick that as Lydia as well, because I've said Lydia comes late. I've mentioned late here as Lydia, so that's automatically pick this particular one, and it is serving as both local and global variable, such that if I call Lydia, you see that when I call Lydia here, you see that we have she is or was Lydia, which is the local variable. And when I call this one, you see that this also gives me in the aspect of local or global variable. So this is a way you can get that done. So this is a way you can work on it as related to declaring them local and make them both local and global. And you can also change the global variable inside the function by, like I said, the moment you refer them to as global inside it there, that's automatically happens. But inside that particular place, you can also change it. So changing it, I mean, is that you can declare that, and when you get inside it, you now redeclared it, and that's going to give you the particular aspect. So this is generally how you can declare variable, and you should be able to use them in both local and global. So this is all about variable. So variable, like, have a bit touch of function, so which we are going to explore more better, because from now we are going to be talking about different things. But what you should understand is when you are talking about variable, and I've said global and local variable, you should understand what it means, such that if you declare a particular global or local variable, you should be able to know where and where are you supposed to use them. So that is generally what we are going to be talking about now. So is that okay? Okay, so in that way, we are going just to talk about a bit aspect of Python data type, which we have mentioned yesterday. So we have talked about strings. So we have talked about different types of data. So for example, like I said, any of the text file, we call them, any of the text file, we call them strings. So we know that when we are talking about strings, so let me start with A, and then any of the text file which we declare, like array, we call them, this is what we call strings, as we have talked about yesterday. So this is strings, and any number that have to do with integer, float, and complex number, we call them numerical types. And any number that have to do with list, tuple, and range, we call them sequence. And any number that have to do with dictionary, we call them mapping types. And the same thing, any number that have to do with true or false, we call them bool, that is, it's either true or false. We have other types of data like sets, like frozen set. We have binary. We have known type of data. So those type of data, like I told you yesterday, so if I want to access the type of data, I can just say print here, and I will say type, and I will say A. So if I run this, I should be able to have, it is called strings. So if I go here and change this type again and replace it with 5, and then I will run the same code again, I should be able to get integer. And if I put 5.6 and I run it again, I should be able to have float. And then the same way, if I put 5i or 5j and I run it again, I should be able to have complex number. So this automatically read for you, and you understand what it means. And the same way, like I said, if yesterday I was saying something that I listed like lists, and I go ahead and say tuple, now this type of data is what we call lists. So you use square bracket in separating them. So anything that is inside here, that's a type of list type of data. And if you put this type of brackets, you're going to have them as tuple. Yeah. So if you put this type of brackets, you're going to have them as tuple. And at the same time, if you put something like in this particular pattern, for example, you say a number that ranges in aspect of let's say 2, and then you change this thing to b, and then put b here and run this, you're going to get this type of data as range. So there are different types of data, so which we are going to be going one after the other and treating them. And you remember what we use in mapping or data is what we call dictionary. So for example, if I say that if I go here, this one we use curly bracket in dictionary. So in that way, if I say my name, and then I say that my name is Kingsley here, then I will now separate this Kingsley with another thing. So I want to say age, for example. I'm going to go with my age, or yeah, so let's go with age. Then I now put this as well, and I put 517. If I print x, what type of data is x referring to? Then the x is going to definitely be a dictionary. So you see, anytime you have a key and value, you are actually having a kind of what we call dictionary, because you store a key here and value. So we're going to do more of this key, where we will have a set of like I was telling you people, I explained that expressively, that in the data we are using, we have building, and inside building we have a key that is yes, we have residential, we have commercial, a building that is for commercial. If you go, you have building that is shop. If you go again, you have another building that is for industry. You have another building for everything. So this is the key, and these are the values. So this is what it means when you're talking about dictionary. And then you have other things. We have byte, we have known, and rest of them. So there are different types of you can see a key to view memory and rest of them. So there are different types of data type, which we are going to be working on one after the other. And with that, you should understand the type of data type we are going to be using. But generally, we are going to go deeper into using some of them, like integer, float. We might a bit use complex for some of us that are working on, because we might want to, like I told you, we are going to be writing a real life example of some code. Yeah, so what I'm saying in generally is, if you are to talk about the data type, any number that is on its own, that does not have anything attached to it, is called an integer. Like if I have this number here, this is an integer, and if I have another number that goes like this, it is also an integer. And if I have another number that goes like this, it is an integer. So everything you see here is an integer, and once you want to see the type, it remain integer. Now if you have another numbers that started with any other thing like this, and then once the number have dot, either it is in longer format or shorter format, whichever way it is, even if it is small things like this, like 1.1, once it have point in between them, this is an integer. And this, all these number you're having here, they are floats. So this is purely integer, this is float, and anytime you call something like that, it is automatically in float, whether you put it in like this, whichever way. But once there is a dot in between them, that should also tell you that it is float. Now the same thing happened to also complex number. Any number that have to do with, let's say, 3, we already did science, so we understand what I'm trying to say. This is a kind of complex number, and even if it is alone, you have them like this, it is still a complex number. Even if it comes with this way and then it's have something like this, it is called a complex number. Once there is something that is attached to it like this, that's automatically makes it a complex number. And as you see, whether it is 1 or 2, that's automatically makes it a complex number or small number, complex number, integer, whatever it is. And like I've said earlier, you can convert them, like I said yesterday, assuming you have x is equal to, let's say a is equal to, the moment you put strings and then you change this thing, let me start with integer. The moment you put integer and say 4.5, and then if you run type of a, you are definitely going to have it as an integer. Why? Because you have put integer here. And if you put float here and then change this thing to 45, this is also going to show you as float. Why? Because even though it is integer, we call it casting. So the moment you put something here and put the number inside it, we call it casting. So that's what you can actually do in that type. Then another number that we're going to be treating or going to be using when it comes to the number is what we call random number. So a random number, Python does not have a random function to make a random number. So but it have a built-in models that are called random, so that you can use to make random number. So in that particular pattern, how do you use random number? In using random number, you need to do first, you need to import random. It is a built-in function. You need to import random, and when you import random, so you automatically you can say print for me a random number that is in between. Now when you import random, you can say print for me a random number that is in between here. You can say 100. Now when you run this particular thing, it's going to print you a random number that is here to 100. Now we are going to be using as something like this from when we start going to models. You can say import random as, you call it Lydia. So this is as alias. So what it means is that if I put here, I can put here as Lydia, because I've said import random as Lydia. That's going to give me Lydia is not defined. Oh yeah, it is my mistake. So I did not write Lydia well. So import random number as Lydia. So what it means is that any place you see want to use random, you can use Lydia there. If you don't want it like that, you remain it as random, and it means that you don't need to import, so you have to stick with using random here. So what it means is that if you say give me random number, like those games we used to play that time, guess number. I don't know whether you play it, but we used to play guess number. Guess what I'm going to say. So you can use random. There is a game I program, short game I program for children, that we use this type of thing, guess. So I actually use random in writing it. So in that way, if I say guess a number, I can just say from this to 5, and anytime I run this code, the number that is going to come must be between here to 5. So it's just like a guess number. So I'm running it almost every time. So you can see that it's between 1 here. That's the number you're going to have. So if you reduce this to 2 and run it, so what happens is that the number you're going to be having ought to be 1, because it says give me a random number from 1 to 2 except 2. So this is a random number. So if you put 3 here, you should be able to have a random number from 0 to, that is from 1 to 2, except 3. So this is the way you can work with random number. So it is a number that we use sometimes. So you can import random, and then you're going to use that random to work. Remember that the last number you have here is a number that you said from that place, do not add a number inside it. So that I don't add a particular number to it. So anytime you're dealing with number, you stop in that particular pattern. So you say do not add that particular number to it. So this is generally what we are talking about, and we are going to be talking about this thing for a long time. And we're going to be talking about this for a long time. And remember, like I said, I've told you about how you can cast. Those casts is how do you put those things into that particular way, so you can cast them. Now, in aspect of casting, like I said, it's just for you to put it like this, and that's automatically works in for you. Now, remember I was saying something like putting a strings. So the same thing you do here, you can also do it with strings, but in another way around. How do you work with single or double quote? And I might also stop there after talking about this one. So how do you work with single or double quotes? The way you work with it is that you assign a value into it, and when you assign a go ahead, like what I mean is that if I want to call print Lydia always come late, and I now have to start like this, and I say Lydia always comes late, but I'm interested in putting late, emphasizing on late. So if you look at this, you see now that I am trying to use a single and double quote inside here, and this is the way you can use it. So if you start with this, make sure that you end with end. So you see here, I told you that it's either you use single or double quote. So you see here, I'm using a single quote. So if I want to switch the same thing, if I want to use double quote here, I should start with small single quote here, and then go in here and also add with single quote. If you run this code now, what happens is that you're going to have an error. It won't work. This is a syntax error. So what you need to do is that make sure that what you're trying to emphasize here, if you start with double quote, go with double quote internal as well. If you start with single quote, go with single quote as well. So this is exactly what I do here. So in that particular way, you are able to bring in this one like this. You understand? So this is a way you can work with single or double quote. So and then you can assign that and go ahead with it. Now this, like I said, this is a string here. Now how do you assign these values? We have talked about the strings here, how you can assign the values to it. So the way you can assign string is the way we say late, and then we call that all the late that used to come in our class is caused by Lydia. So we assign Lydia into it. But what if I want to assign this way? I can say print Lydia only. Okay, sorry, print late. And when I say print late, it's going to bring Lydia for me. But when I want to bring all the accomplices of Lydia, and I want to say that late, which people and which people comes late, I can now say that late are caused by, remember when we use these three quotes, I've said something like this before when we're talking about comment, and I say that late are caused by Balak. And then also you can see the way I started with this. I can also go down like this and then keep on mentioning people's name. So Fareda. So I can also keep on mentioning people's name. I can also say that they also used to come late. I can also say that Honore also come. So I can put everybody's names here. Now, what am I trying to do? At the end of it, what I need to do is that when I get to the end of it, I need to know that I still need to put three quotes. And if I say print late, so what happens when I say this? So if I say print late on this particular part, So what happens is that let's invalid syntax. Okay, this is a problem. I did not put equal to here. So when I put up this now, you see now that all the things that I've declared inside here, from Bala to Farida to rest of them, all of them are inside here under slate. So this is a way I can declare many this thing into it. So at the same time, if you don't want to use double, you can also use single. You see also one, just need to put your single here, so which is 1, 2, 3, and then still come back to this way and still use the single quote here, 1, 2, 3, and then you are good to go. So in this way you can always go on with this. So this is a way you can get to work on this. So on this we are going to start our next thing with using the strings array. So we're going to go with strings array. So how do you access those items? So the next thing we're going to be working on is so we're going to be working on string arrays. So in strings array, you will need to ask me question now. So but in strings array, so we are going to be working on the array, the unicorn characters. So we're going to be accessing each of the item there, and then we get the position of each of the item. We can access a big text, and let's say we have a big number of tests. Let me just go somewhere and look for something I'm going to copy a bit. So if I look for something that I'm going just to copy somewhere, so let me return here, just look for something to copy. So I'm just going to copy everything that you see here, and you see that we are here, and then I'm going to put this thing as instruction. And remember that I said you say equal to, you say 1, 2, 3, and then you paste this as you see here. You return down here and still say 1, 2, 3, and if I say print instruction, I'm coming, and then you see that we are printing everything that you have here as instruction. So we are going to be accessing each of these items, as you can see how they are, and we can go ahead to say, instead of us printing the entire instruction, so we can go to instruction and completely select where we want to print. Like if I want to print 1, and then you can see that I'm going to print the first thing I have here. So this is where we are going to stop, and we're going to pick it up from here. So this is a way we can access each of those items and loop or array inside of them. So on this we'll continue from here next time, but you are going to go back and make sure you check everything I've been talking about, and we are going to stop on strings array. So